Welcome to the Resolve.ai webinar series. Before we get started, let us quickly go over a few housekeeping items. We love interactive events, so please feel free to ask any question in the Q&A section, which can be accessed at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer those questions towards the end during the Q&A session. If there are more questions than we can answer during the session, we'll get back to you, we promise. This webinar is being recorded, and a recording link will be shared after the event. Thanks again for joining today, and let us get today's session started, and welcome our host.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Manish Sharma. I'm one of your hosts, and I have with me my co-panelist, Saurabh Kumar. Welcome, Saurabh.
Hi there, Manish. How are you?
Good. You know, I was just reflecting on this that we have done a lot of webinars separately, but this is the first time you and me are doing a webinar together.
Yeah, there's always a first time.
All right. So could not be a better topic because this is so important for enterprises, government agencies, everyone who's dealing with learning in a post-COVID environment, right? And what does it mean? How do you change it? And are we just just going to talk about it, give some solutions? So the construct of today's webinar is not only going through the theoretical construct of the problem, but then we are going to show some demos and we are going to kind of make it very real. That's why the topic of the webinar was bringing microlearning on Teams concept to reality. So I again want to welcome everyone for taking part of your day and sharing part of your day and working with us through this webinar. Welcome again. So Saurabh, first, I just wanted to talk about, what is wrong with the traditional, learning. And then to be honest, maybe that's a negative note to start on, but there's a lot of things that work with traditional learning. Traditional learning systems actually help us do a lot of mandatory training. They help us with, for example, if you're trying to train someone, some complex, ideas, which will take half a day, 1 day, or 6 months kind of training. So those kind of things, traditional works. But there are certain scenarios where the traditional learning systems do have a, issue. One of the issues is the format, right? The moment you think about the traditional LMS, people think, oh, it's going to be big and large and bulky. And, people are like, I have to go through a training again. That's a reaction that you tend to get, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll say as a field person, right? So the perspective I bring to the conversation today is that of a line manager, right? Having run teams in my previous enterprise and corporate roles, I always felt that I was really well supported kind of for those large trainings that are organization wide, right? Whether it's a compliance training or a harassment training or a BSA ML training in a bank. But when it comes to those things that you really need to bring to your own employees in your own teams, that's where really all of these things that you have up here, whether it's format or just engagement or being the ability to even create a systematic body of learning that you can distribute to people becomes really important.
Yeah, and another thing that I really find problematic is the lack of handholding, right? If you go through one of those trainings, it's a one-way street, pal. I'm going to give the training, you're going to learn it. And by the way, if you have any issue or something that you don't understand or you're having challenges, the feedback loop is very weak, right? It might exist in some products, but it's generally very weak. It's not alive. It's not. So therefore, before walking into these trainings, that's a one-way street. And, this is something that I need to go through. And people are generally not looking forward to it. They might be good for a static kind of training. For example, I'm a technology person. So someone is trying to treat people Node.js, sure. For that, you want to buy a training and put a 5-hour installment. That makes sense. But for day-to-day dynamic environment where things are changing, environment is changing, those have a challenge. The second part I wanted to kind of mention, we cannot ignore what COVID did to all of us, right? Like, and here in this slide, there are a few constructs that a lot of people here might already be aware about. One is in the flow of the work learning, right? Things that we learn while we are working. And by the way, that is the biggest part of how we learn. Unfortunately for all of us, the informal catch-ups, the water cooler conversations, the, hey, how do you know, looking at your left and talking to a fellow colleague and asking those questions, all that is gone, right? For a lot of us, many of us. Although sure, we are going to come back, but some hit has been taken, right? And some organizations are going to work partially remotely and whatnot. So how do you handle this pull learning where people are trying to figure out things and we need to help them up? That well has kind of gone dry. On the left hand side, if you see, there have been impact on most of the things, right? In class course, you cannot like pull 5 people in a conference room anymore and say, hey, let's go sit down and talk about some topic. Or the feedbacks. Now there's an alternative to all of them. Like we don't go to real conferences, we go to virtual conferences, but they're not the same thing. So there is something missing in all the elements. This COVID thing took a little bit, pandemic took something out from the way we were doing things. And therefore, we all need to react to it and say, therefore, we are reacting to it and we are going to do our training and learning, organizational level learning in a different way.
Makes sense. We used to put new hires in the middle of the floor so that they can be connected to people all around them. So it's that part's completely gone, right? And as you said, all of these other things have scaled back a little or have had to adjust.
Yeah. So so the construct, when we were thinking of the construct and how do we kind of give this new construct that will work in the post-pandemic world? So 3 things we realized need to do differently. By the way, I just can't understand. I cannot fathom why knowledge management system and the learning systems went their different way. I mean, I don't know if you have an insight about this, but I truly cannot believe that they're
They
two
were built by different companies, Manish. Microsoft built SharePoint and LMS companies build the LMS systems. It just evolved historically. I think there's no logical reason, as you said.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I don't think there's a logical reason why your learning system and your knowledge systems and document management system all are sitting in 3 different places, right? But actually, if you think about it logically, employees are asking, when they ask for help or they need to be retained, it's all should be connected, right? It should be a single place where you come. So we believe that knowledge management and micro learning, they need to be very closely tied to each other. And by the way, the third thing that we believe very strongly on this help and feedback loop, right? Like if you want your trainings to work, you need to improve the help and feedback loop. And by the way, the additional angle that we are saying is, hey, it all should be available on Teams because and we'll explain why it should be available on Teams. But that's another of our core tenets. How do we change the game in learning? Because let's be honest, the world does not need yet another learning management system, right? There's enough learning management systems in the world as it is. So if we were just to add yet another learning management system, that's not what anyone wants, and therefore it has to be solving a problem that is not being solved so far.
I think this what you were just talking about is the heart of, I think, the conversation today, right? I think the idea of bringing knowledge, which is either in people's head or in documents or intranet sites, and bringing learning, that's how organically and naturally people learn. They do something, then they go ask someone, then they read a document, they come back. And how do you recreate that in a more systematic way that is scalable, that is repeatable, I think is the heart of, I think, what we're going to talk about. And in a way where people are not left to figure this out on their own, they have some help and support kind of built into this model, right? I think this is to me, this is the heart of what we'll talk about today.
So true. And talking about micro learning, right? Like one of the questions is why micro learning? Why not do full scale learning? Why didn't you create another like learning traditional learning system? And I think the learning today is happening in bite-sized pieces, right? We are we are not, we can tune into something for some amount of time, but we cannot tune into something for 3 hours. It's very, very difficult. It's a really taxing thing. So we believe in bite-sized learning, right? And that's by the way, the name of our submodule, which is Morsel, right, comes from that. Second thing we believe is that content should be, even if you're watching a video, right, like look at YouTube and all those kind of things, right? They should be short, right? You don't want, again, it's the same principle, but we are saying keep it short. The third thing is you want it to be multimedia, right? Like you don't want a whole lot of text. People can't even deal with text even in a presentation, right? Like you put a presentation which has a lot of text in it and people start like tuning out. So you want multimedia. And then you want it to be inspired by, we are inspired, by the way, by companies like Twitter and TikTok. I mean, it's surprised that person my age can know what TikTok is, but we are inspired by TikTok. It's these are great products which are talking to people, and this is how people are engaging. And finally, we believe that everything should be conversational, right? I think the new interface of enterprises is conversational AI. We use Alexa at home, we use Google Home. We know, we are getting more and more comfortable with the idea of texting, chatting, and using conversational medium rather than the traditional, I call them rectangular systems where there's a lot of rectangles in it. So I think these are the kind of core design principles that anyone should take, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you have a kid in school, this is it's very interesting to see how the newer generation is learning, even like academic learning, differently than what I grew up in, the environment I grew up in. They just kind of discover little nuggets and they assemble them and they synthesize them. If you observe them carefully, you'll see a different pattern, and it's just because they grew up with some of these other formats as a generation.
Absolutely. You do most of your learning on YouTube and other channels, to be honest, right? So, and by the way, if all this can be available on Teams, right? That's amazing. That's the, cherry on top, really. Um, uh, this is therefore how the Marcel looks like. So I'm going to take everyone through what a modern construct can look like. And it does look like in our case. So there are three players here. There's a Marcel, which is a virtual, assistant. There is a trainee and there's a trainer, right? Three players into the picture. So the trainee, let's go by trainee, what the trainee is trying to do. Well, trainee might get an alert about a training. The trainee, he or she goes to Marcel virtual assistant and start chatting. And the virtual assistant will bring the training that has been assigned to them, make sure that they want to do the training right now. And if they want to go ahead and do the training, then, they start with the training. Now, what is the job of Marcel, by the way? That brings us to the top piece of it. So, it takes the employees through step by step of the training. The content can be video, GIFs, images, quiz, rich text, all of that. And by the way, along the way, if employee has any question, these questions can be answered by the bot, right? So the virtual assistant can answer the question. And this is a huge difference, because now when you are going through the training and you don't know the answer to something, or there's a, let's say, acronym that you don't recall from the previous training, you can just ask the question. And there is your virtual assistant, boom, here is the answer, and then you can continue. And third, it helps also connect to the trainers, right? The people who have created the content. So if you have a question that chatbot cannot answer, it will go back to the person who created the training, right? And you can actually even do live chat with them, live conversation with them if they are available. And if they are not available, it will leave an offline message for them so that they can come back and have a communication with them. So this is a whole different level of this feedback loop that I was talking about, and the assistance and hand holding and so on and so forth. Of course, one way to provide hand holding was to, get a whole lot of people to do it, but none of us can afford that. We don't have that kind of budgets that we can have like 20 people on chat all the time available, or taking people to rooms and chatting with them. So instead, what we are doing is your virtual assistant does that. And by the way, let's go to the role of the last person, which is a trainer. And the trainer, basically what they're doing is they will obviously create content, and content creation is very simple with Marcel. They can add a quiz, they can add a test, all that is possible. They can assign trainings to trainee, and then they can monitor the progress, right? Of who's done what, 60% of people did it, whatnot. And if there are any questions from the employee perspective, they'll help resolve that. So this is, the modern construct that we created.
And I think one thing I'll add, Manish, is I think this makes a ton of sense to me. One thing I'll add is the notion of trainer historically has being that it's a specialized person somewhere in the organization who's creating trainings for everyone's consumption. I think when I think of trainer in this context, it is really anyone in the organization who feels like they need to train and coach a bunch of people, right? So if I, as a line manager, have 10 salespeople in my team who I need to educate on a new sales process, or if I'm, if I'm a technology manager who's rolling out a new tool to some parts of the organization, I am the trainer, right? And trainer is just a dimension to who I am. It's not a, it's not a special person, right? So I just,
Yeah, it's a democratization of training at the end of it, right? Like many to many, right? Anyone can train anyone depending on the situation. You don't need, so, and that's what we do, right? Don't we end up doing that? If I know something
because we
better.
all do it. Yes, that's exactly right, right? I mean, intuitively, when you're in a job, people come to you and ask questions. You help them out. You walk over to their desk. You show them how to do something, right? That's how we all work, and that is really the idea here, right? That we all can add knowledge. We all can train each other, right? And how do we make that kind of network possible?
Perfect. And by the way, to make this happen, I'll go a little bit behind the, and you're going to see, a lot of people are going to see this in the demo, but you need content management, you need a smart virtual assistant, you need live chat, you need case management, you need training studio, you need training. So you need a lot of things in the back end to make this happen, which we'll show you. But this is the construct that we need. By the way, there is a question here, and I'm going to take questions as we keep going along because we want it interactive, so there's fun. Is this tool available to Microsoft customers on US GCC tenants? I think so. I think that
Yeah,
is true.
we'll let's take that and check with
Yeah,
our
we'll check
technology
with
team.
that. But whoever asked this question, we are going to come back to you, through some channel. Okay, let's go further. So, like I said, we have all these components. We are not going to, there's not a technology, like we are not going to go through all the components here, but we are going to show you this is what it takes to make this happen, right? By the way, we are saying Teams, but you can of course use the training on web version also, and nothing stops you on a mobile phone and stuff like that. One quick note, Microsoft Teams, right? The reason it becomes so important is Teams is nowadays, it's exploding. Saurabh, I was reading this research that before April of last year, before the whole thing happened, there were around 20 million users of Team. And last we checked, there are around 170, 180 million, users of Team, and increasing every month. I talk to so many organizations. Microsoft customers are primarily our customers, and when we talk to them, so many of them, oh, we are not using Team last year, but we are using, either started using or about to use it. So this is a huge change, and something that we all need to acknowledge and basically kind of play with, right? Because if as an employee, Teams is among the top 3 apps that I'm using, then as an administrator, as a CIO, or head of HR or head of learning, I need to acknowledge this change, big change that is happening, and kind of react to that.
I think it makes sense, right? I mean, I think the biggest thing, I think from my perspective, inside an organization has been when you roll out new capabilities, adoption is your number one struggle, right? So I might have built the greatest CRM tool ever available to the sales team, but salespeople still prefer their spreadsheets, right? And that's just that shift. And Manish, I'm not looking at you when I say this, right? But the idea here is that how do you go where people are, right? So if Teams is where they are, doing something in the flow of what they're already doing, whether they're there to have meetings or chat with each other, if you inject these new capabilities in that pathway, that friction to adopt a new technology, a new capability goes down drastically, right? And I think that is really the punchline here.
Cool. So what we are going to do is we are going to tell them the construct. We have told the construct of the product, but I'm going to just tell 1 or 2 terms, and then we are going to go to the demo, because demo is where the magic is, honestly. So the one thing that we all know, we go to library, we can check out any books, right? And the books have chapters, right? Books can be divided into various chapters, and chapters might be divided into pages, and pages are written by sentences, right? So without going into too much detail, we have a structure similar to that, right? There are programs, there's learning, there's topic, there are articles, and basically, you don't read topic page number 31 before you read page number 30, right? So you can put things in a sequence, and there are a lot of concepts like that. I'm sure today we cannot cover everything, but I wanted to give a glimpse of how the structure of the product looks. But that being said, it's demo time, right? This is where the fun begins. So I'm going to restart. This is, by the way, on Teams. You are seeing this on my Teams. We have Saurabh, you want to, while I set it up, do you want to take the time to explain the thing between Resolve and Marcel, how these two kind of what are the broad area that we are playing in and stuff like that? Do you want to talk about that before I get started?
Sure, Manish. I think at the end of the day, when we started Resolve, our focus was on creating a new way of servicing the employee, right? And servicing historically has meant servicing when employee needs has an issue, right? So you wait and I'm logged out of my system and I need a password reset or whatever their issue is. We started to build a new generation of that automates that service for the user, and that's how Resolve, the name, came about. We extended that idea and said, reacting to service is great, but what if we move ahead of the curve and help them actually do the things that they need to do better, and do it in a way that does not cost millions of dollars when organizations try to scale it, right? And then it came out of our own way of how we all want to learn and use, and that's how we started Morcel, where the idea is, you take a little bite of it, of this learning every day, and you grow, and you get more efficient, you get more knowledgeable on what you need to do. And it's built on this foundation of being able to get help and get service, and it just builds upon that. So
Yep. So and by the way, what I was showing was there are a bunch of programs that were assigned to me. I picked up the program that I want to, done. This I've already done, so it's showing the status as done. But let's say I want to redo it. And if I want to redo it, it says, okay, let's get started. I'm revisiting a completed topic. That's fine. Typically, it also tells me you have provision to tell me how many minutes it will take. So before you started training, you can say, listen, Manish, it's going to take you 5 minutes or 3 minutes of learning before you can. So you can do that. So let's say this is topic number 1. I started, and there's a video. Let's listen.
Every day, employees waste time and get frustrated looking for information or trying to get help. They write emails or call their service desk, being experts on MS Teams, and go back and forth to resolve their issues. The leadership is also frustrated, as their efforts to shift left and automate employee support have not borne fruits. But that is changing now thanks to Resolve.ai. Resolve.ai is an enterprise.
And so on and so forth. I wouldn't bore our guest with all the video, but essentially there can be video, there can be GIFs, there can be images, there can be text, whatever you want, right? So let's assume I watched the video, very engaging. Let's go forward. Here is some, introduction, it is a text, obviously. It takes me through that. Now, the interesting thing is I want you to pay attention to this get help button, right? So maybe I need help, right? Maybe there's something that I don't understand here. So let's say if I just say get help, let's see what happens. So here you go. There is your virtual assistant, which comes and say, let's say if my question is, how do I create hyperlinks? Maybe there's a question like that. And because we have in our product, we have, by the way, hyperlinks that you can create and stuff like that. And let's say I don't know that. So here you go. It give me an answer, and I can pick up one of the answers, and it can, I can go that way and figure out if this answer works for me or not. And it tells me what to do and how to do hyperlinks. And if I'm happy with it, I say yes. And by the way, if I'm not happy with it, I can say no. And when I say no, by the way, it offers me now, go back. Do you want to resume the training? Do you want to go to the program menu? You want to ask another question? Let's say if I want to just ask another question, right? So if I go and say, for example, which date do we celebrate celebrate 4th of July? I know, stupid question. I'm just not to
I'm glad
reflect.
you're not demoing this to my children. They would have had a field day with that question.
And looks like my virtual assistant is as clueless as I am. So it says, I don't know this yet. What do you want to do? Right? This is not something that I'm trained to do. So now at this phase, I can say, you know what? I want to chat with someone. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing, and I need help. Right? So it goes and says, chat with the expert. So it says, listen, I've sent a message to someone and looks like they're available. Do you want to chat with them? Hey, why not? Let's chat. So at this point of time, someone from the back end is going to, come and help me. And I think someone is, someone from our company is actually at back end. There you go. Hi, Karian. Shout out to Karian from here. So she comes and I say, I can say hello and, whatever. And she would have already read my question and issue, and she would know what is the problem. And she will now be able to hopefully solve my problem. And once she is able to solve my problem, she can disconnect, right? So I am getting help right away based on what's going on, right? There you go. She gave me the answer. I'm satisfied. Thank you, and done, right? And of course, your virtual assistant should be able to answer a lot of these questions. She disconnected, I got my feedback form, etc., etc. It's all standard, and life is good. I want to show you though, even by itself this will be great, right? And it brought me to the beginning of the training. I can, by the way, let's just, for the heck of it, let's go through one more training before we go to the admin console. Let's say there's a virtual agent training. By the way, just so people are clear, we have our service desk product on Teams. And this training we have created for that, because people get onboarded on that product. They don't know some things they want to understand as admin. So we have created this training for them, and people are getting trained on this who are basically buying our service desk product. They are getting trained on this. So for example, if I do this, there's an in progress training, right? Resume where you left off. And let's see what you remember. So it looks like there's a quiz here, right? And boom, so there's a quiz. I might give a right answer or right enterprise, yes, true, a simple one. I should know it. If I don't know it, I'll be fired. So there is an answer, and it says great, and then there's another quiz. So there can be quiz that you can put, and depending on the quiz, the person might go to a next one or this thing. So that is one of the construct, but you have seen only half the fun so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the other half of the fun. This is where how you create the learning, right? So this is in the back end. If you can see, let me move something on my screen. This is the content management. This is where I was talking about the concept of programs and learnings and topics and article. So there's programs, within programs, they are learning. Within learning, there's topic. This is a topic, by the way, what you're seeing. And within topic, you can have multiple topics. And within topics, you can also add a quiz. For example, if I want to add a quiz, I can just add a quiz. And each of these individual things, by the way, are the, these are, articles. These are called articles, and it's very simple to add an article. You can just add this, and you can say I want to add a video article or text and image article, and boom, that's it. I'll add that and it will get added. I can add my own video. I make a lot of these trainings, so I add my own video. Karian, who was there, she adds a lot of videos. So we can just add videos or add text or just import, get an PDF or whatever, and we can just make the training. It's very simple. So that's one part of simple. But let's go to the part where the live chat was happening, right? So the live chat was happening here, for example. So the moment live chat comes, if I'm sitting there, if I happen to be online, I'll say, oh, someone is trying to do admin intro to Marcel and they're having trouble with it. Let me jump in and help them, right? So it's very simple that way. Also, on top of it, the issue that people created, they go as tickets. So whatever issue that people had, like I was talking about admin intro to resolve, there was an issue, it was created as a ticket, right? So now, like these are the issues, right? I was saying, which date do we celebrate 4th of July? And there was a ticket that was created. So issues will be created as ticket, which is essentially what the way we call is offline messaging. And then it can be allocated to the right person and that person can react to it, right? Now, when you're reacting to it, there are three things you can do. One, you can live chat like we showed, but there are two other things you can do and they're very powerful. Second thing, what you can do is you can go to the virtual agent management and train your bot. You can say, listen, this question is coming quite often and the bot doesn't know this. So I'm going to train the bot to learn this. For example, if I go to supervised learning, I go here, which date do we celebrate 4th of July, right? Boom, I'm going to create an answer for that. So next time onwards, the bot will be able to handle this question. So now you have done it once, you don't need to do again, right? And the bot will be able to handle this question next time. This is very simple to do. The other thing I can do is, of course, I can go to the training, right? And add something to the training very easily. If I believe that this question indeed belongs to the training and I missed it first time, I should add it into the training. All I'm going to do is going to the learning and open that right learning and just add the training there, right? Whatever that training might be. I might add just one text or upload an image or whatever I want to do. So it completes the feedback loop very strongly. And therefore, the users get very strong support. They get the sense that they're being helped and it's very easy and accessible.
Yeah, I'll maybe take a minute to chime in, Manish. Is I think unless you're delivering a training in person, right? Unless you're in a classroom, there has never been a mechanism for the creator of the training to hear what questions people are having, what are their doubts, what are they struggling with, right? When you do a structured LMS type training, you go through it. I may understand it, I may not understand it, but the goal is just complete it so that it gets off my assigned training list and I'm done, right? Now, for the first time, I think, and this is what I really love about what we're doing here, is you can hear from your users. They could be anywhere, right? They could be in Australia, they could be in Germany, they could be here in the States. Doesn't matter, right? We get to see what are they struggling with, what are their questions, whether we answer them as a knowledge article that is a quick answer, or whether we build a new module in the training. I think this is revolutionary. To me, I think that ability to listen and then respond in near real time has just not been there, right? And I think this changes the game to me. I think it's, I used to run distributed teams, and if I had something like this, I think that would be, that would be compelling, extremely compelling. So.
Fantastic. No, I agree. I mean, we are very proud of the product that we have created, and a couple of other things. The knowledge base behind the product, right? How we have seamlessly kind of joined the knowledge and the learning experience, right? It's pretty modern. By itself, enterprise knowledge management is a very, very solid product. It is natively connected to the chatbot. It's natively connected to learning system. It's a very high accuracy rate when people ask the question. You can add metadata to that. You have audit trail on who asked the question, who created the question. Each admin can create their own. So for example, learning number one, you can create your own you can create your own database, but I might be administering one database. I can have one learning and you might have another, and we can create learning the database either by topic of learning, or we can just create by enterprise knowledge management perspective, right? It's very smart in terms of the AI based learning to it. It learns very quickly. The chatbot is very smart. It learns from the mistake it makes, and you can easily update it, and it gives very short succinct answers. Therefore people kind of love it. So this is also a very important component, and I'm talking about this towards the end after talking about learning management, but these two things go hand in hand, and they work very well together. They play very well together. So next slide kind of talks about what is it that you can do with it, right? Like this is, Saurabh, I know this is your favorite topic. I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, and I would love to hear from the group either right now in Q&A or later as well. Is in your organizations, these are groups that we've engaged with, right? Sales trainings, whether internal organizations like underwriting or architecture, where people need to train a large group of people pretty quickly on. These are use cases, but the idea is these are all at the functional level, right? They're not corporate wide. This is not one training for all 100% of my employees. This is I'm in a team, I'm in a group, I'm in an organization, I need to train my people, whether it's sales or whether it's I'm onboarding a new employee. And while they might get compliance trainings done, I still need to teach them how to do the job that they're walking into, right? These are the types of use cases that we have started to hear from the customers that we are working with. But I would love to have this group either now or maybe offline. Would love to hear your stories, what you're hearing from your own people on where they would like to have this type of capability, in terms of quickly teaching their people new skills.
And we are clearly seeing it in contact centers, on like retail employees who are on the floor. We are seeing it of our students, right? In universities, we are seeing this. We are being used for insurance companies, for underwriters, right? So there are a lot of use cases for which the product is being used. But we are always curious about where else people want to use the product, right? Because we are at the beginning of a big revolution, and I have a feeling we are going to discover quite a lot. And by the way, that talks to us about, as a company, we are very much, we believe that we are here to learn as well, right? Not only we are making a learning system, but we are here to learn as well. Some best practices in terms of product, we necessarily don't have to go through it, but this is some, what we have developed over a period of time, how to make it more engaging, how to make it more interesting, how to make it, take your metrics of learning even to the next level. And one important thing, this is a question sometimes we get, because people say, what happened to my learning traditional LMS, right? I have invested in traditional LMS. What do I do with it? And our answer is, you use that, right? You use that LMS system, because that LMS system is going to do some mandatory training, some of the other trainings that you're probably going to do, the long form trainings, as I like to call them, right? But there is bunch of other trainings which are quick reaction, fast, where you want people to engage, where sending an email is not going to do it. This is where you use our product. And basically, we have the ability to connect to the traditional LMS systems. We can send them, like, you can have a single dashboard in terms of which trainings were completed or not completed. You don't have to look in two different places. That can be accomplished. But essentially, these two things will play together, right? Just the way you say, certain things you accomplish by sending an email, right? But you also have LMS. Similarly, this is somewhere in the middle, where you can do a whole lot of stuff with this, but there might be some cases where you need your traditional LMS as well. And essentially what it is going to do for you is, it's going to really help you engage with your employees. Their retention is going to go up. They're going to know where to come to find information. You're going to simplify their life. You're going to reduce the time that they take in a day figuring things out. And it is going to save huge amount of time, right? So there are a bunch of metrics that we are seeing emerging, which are pretty dramatically better than anything traditional that people have seen so far.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
think the idea is to move training from the realm of I feel stress when I have to do assigned trainings, to something that it's helping me learn new skills, right? I think if we can make that shift happen, I think we've done what we wanted to do.
Perfect. So I think we're pretty much, I mean, there's a whole lot to show, but I hope we're able to deliver on the promise that we make to audience, that, listen, we are going to talk about how we are going to deliver micro-learning on Teams, and how does it go from concept to reality, and hopefully more than that, right? So with that, we are towards the end of our session. I wonder if there are any questions, any more questions. There were a couple of questions that were asked. If there are any more questions from anyone. If not, then thank you so much for being here. Feel free to engage with us after the session. If you like it, give us thumbs up, and join in this journey, which is pretty amazing journey in which we are on. I appreciate it. We do a webinar pretty much every week or every other week. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Appreciate it.